our program. Just very briefly, my name is Kevin Brown. I'm from the LACC Foundation. We're happy to work with other offices on campus, and I wanted to introduce our host today, Andrea Ike.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Eke, and I am the Umoja Coordinator and Multicultural Center Coordinator here at Los Angeles City College. And today we have a special presentation in honor of Black History Month. Our theme is History Has Its Eyes on Us, Bold, Fearless, and Ambitious. And so today we are honored to have our Black History speaker who is going to share with us his experiences, extensive experiences across Ghana, Nigeria, and African-American photography. And so before we begin though, I wanted us to remember the importance of Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson is known as the father of Black history, and he was a distinguished Black author, editor, publisher, and historian. And he said that those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history. So today we have the pleasure to learn from the vast experiences and wisdom of Mr. Howard Cash. Howard Cash was born in 1953 in Harlem, New York. As an elementary school student at Holy Name School in Manhattan, he discovered that his first creative love was literature. It was in high school at the Laurinburg Institute, a family-owned college preparatory school in North Carolina, that he was introduced to the literary works of William Shakespeare, Paul Laurence Dunbar, Langston Hughes, Gwendolyn Brooks, Pyrie Thomas, and Alex Haley's autobiography of Malcolm X, amongst others. Through the students at the Berg, he was exposed to jazz and rock music, the Black Power, and the Civil Rights Movement, philosophy, and Southern living. In 1973, Mr. Howard Cash took off for California and enrolled at Los Angeles City College, LACC, the best city college. There he met Edmund Sella, an old-time portrait photographer from Brooklyn, who through their studio, the Look of Love Photography, showed him the beauty of available light photography. At LACC, he learned to tell the story of events as a photojournalist on the school's newspaper, The Collegian. There he formed a lasting friendship with the paper's advisor, Joseph Dockstadt. Thank you. Howard learned the technical aspects of color and black and white photography downstairs in the photography department, but his passion for photography evolved upstairs on the college newspaper. Mr. Howard has received numerous awards and distinctions, such as in 2002, he was awarded the New York State Liberty Award for the photography exhibition, Portraits and Conversations on 9/11. In 2000, he received condemnation from the Consulate General of Nigeria for the photographic exhibition, Celebrating the Spirit of Nigeria. In 2000, he received the Community Arts Initiative Award on African Dance and Slow Motion, Lower Manhattan Community Council. And in 1999, between Kodak and LACC's 70th anniversary photo contest, he received that award through the Los Angeles City College Foundation. And so Mr. Cash has traveled the world, and his photography truly tells a story. So today we are honored to have him to share with us this virtual gallery that showcases and celebrates the spirit of Nigeria, Ghana, and African Americans. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Howard Cash.
Hello, how's
Virtual class. Welcome.
Pleasure.
So we're going to hop right into it. As you can see, this is the virtual gallery that Mr. Cash has created. And so we're going to step right into this virtual experience as you would and walk through these photos. And Mr. Cash is going to share with us the history behind the photo, share with us what experiences that he had at this moment and what these photos represent. So Mr. Cash.
This is a piece from Ghana. My first trip to Africa was in '78, and it came through LACC with a group called Operation Crossroads Africa. Now, I was supposed to go in '77, but I didn't get my money together in time. So I did go in '78. And we were in Boinzon, which was a rural area in coffee and cocoa plantations. We were volunteers, so we harvested some of those. And but but during that period, they took us to a river village where everybody swam. And so it contradicted the idea that Black people don't swim or can't swim, because there were little children that were like almost like Olympic swimmers. I mean, they were at home in the water. This gentleman is making what's called a fisherman's net, and fishing is very, very important along the coastal region of West Africa period, well, Africa period. And so it's a way of life. And what happens is that the men catch the fish and they give it to the women take it to market and they make the money. Men get a certain amount of money for what they catch, but women get another part of money for their retail ability. So, you know, that's something that plus it was just nice being around an area of, you know, where you had people look like me who were so enterprising. So that was something that was a great benefit.
Thank you. And I love this photo here. It looks like there's different generations represented.
Yeah,
Is this Ghana?
yeah, and it's that same village. If you notice that the sticks behind them, bamboo, it's the same village, and it's 3 generations of family, and a gentleman in the back, and the woman in the middle, she was like, you could see the proud, you know, look of everybody, you know. It was, you didn't find people that were, a lot of times the media portrayed us as destitute or in anguish. You didn't see that. I mean, we found proud people living their lives. So in dignity. So that was, when you don't really look at it at first. I mean, you take the shot, but then when you get home and you look at it and you go through it and you analyze it, and it's just a moment. There was no way anybody could hide. So, you know, it gives you an overall understanding of African people, of these African people, and how they saw the world and how they saw themselves. This was still Ghana. Ghana was, after everything that took place in the East, I guess was Western region near Ivory Coast, which is where we were. We came back to Accra, and this is called the Makola Market. And here you see the pride and dignity of a young man, entrepreneur, selling his work, selling his ice cream. 25p means pesewa. It doesn't mean penny, it means pesewa. That's the name for their currency. CDs, pesewa, that's their currency. And he's just doing his thing. And again, you can see his proud look. Now, this was in Boinzon. This was the area where we worked. Early in the morning, I'm in my 20s. So we go out in the morning, we work in the coffee, cocoa plantations. About in the afternoon, say about 1 o'clock, you know, we're on our way back. And, you know, I was in front of the truck, and, you know, everybody you could see was, you know, in the back at my wide angle. But the gentleman to the right, his name is Walter. And Walter is an African-American. He was part of our Crossroads group, and he was a cadet at the time out of West Point. But you can still see the features, his African features, how they also blended in with the Ghanaian features. So, and then she's breastfeeding. So it's really a very, you know, interesting, powerful photo. And this was an image that was in the Brooklyn Museum committed to the image 2000, I think it was 2000. We celebrated almost 100 Black photographers and our imagery.
I wanted to speak to that because I did travel to Nigeria, and I noticed the same thing when I went. I had no idea what I was going to expect, and once I got there, I was amazed at how so many people looked like people I knew back home, and how the features were so similar. And it's like, you look like someone in my family, and it was really just beautiful to be able to see just the similarities. And although we're just the rich heritage of us as a people. So that's amazing. I would have never thought that he was not part of Ghana, that he was not from there. He looks just like everyone else in the photo.
Yeah, Walter was, at first, we all have our challenges of blending in with African culture based upon our American mentality. But after a while, it was just second nature. And Walter, blended in very well. He was still in Ghana, and this is one of the elders of the village. And he was just, you could see in him years of his eyes, thought, things he had seen over the years, over the decades. And I always thought that was an interesting image of, and then you also have the beauty of an elder. Now, elders are not like they are here. They're not kicked to the curb. The elders are revered in African culture. So, when they speak, people listen, as opposed to, you old, you don't know what you're talking about. It is not necessarily, they are taught to respect their elders. And so he's a gentleman in the village who I'm sure has seen more, forgotten more than many young people know. So. And here we are, we're back at the River Village. These are the elders, the men. And in African society or in culture, a lot of times, men are separate from the women. They have their bonding, they have their conversations, what they value, and women have theirs. So these were the village elders. These were the men who I would probably say made the rules and regulations or enforced the rules and regulations in that river village. Okay, now this was called something at dawn. I forgot what the name is. Conversations at Dawn. And these were two women who were purging, I don't want to say evils, I want to say discomfort in their lives, maybe mistakes or problems. I did get a chance once it was on display one day to see one of the daughters of one of the ladies. And I asked her, I said, what were they doing? And I told her what I thought, and she said, okay. And she came back and said, yeah, they were purging. They were just, trying, it was early, they were meditating out bad spirits, bad energy, cleansing themselves. And that's an image that I always liked.
Beautiful.
This is an award-winning image. It's called Angels on the Beach. Shot at that same time. What you have in New York is something called the Ma'afa. And the Ma'afa is a period put on by St. Paul's Community Church, Baptist Church, whereby they commemorate those of us that died in the Middle Passage coming over from Africa. So it's like a seaside celebration. And they put together a dance. So we get up early. We're there like before dawn. And then around dawn, things begin. And so this dance occurred. I had a couple more shots, but this was the one that just said everything. Okay. There was a gentleman, I don't know if you ever heard of, you might know about him, Andrea, called Baba Olatunji. He was an African drummer. He's from Nigeria. He was well known in America. He taught Nigerian drumming. And a few days prior, he had passed. And so because he was so revered, you had a procession coming down 125th Street of people that had either studied with him or had revered his playing. There's a album he did called Drums of Passion. That's a classic. So you have, I mean, it was pretty big. You know, it was just like a celebration. Everybody came down, and then they went over to where he was laid to rest at the funeral home. And if I'm correct, I think Danny Glover was there that day.
Wow.
Before we move on to the next image, or there was two images prior to that, the women who were commemorating the Ma'afa, that was actually took place in New York off of the Atlantic coast.
Yeah, it takes place every year. That one was at Rockaway Beach. Now I understand they moved it down a little bit, further down in Queens, or somewhere off of the coast, but it's a little further down. But at that time, it was I think like 57 or Rockaway Beach. You know, Rockaway Beach has different numbers. And so it was not far from the train station. So,
and so the previous image where the two women are meditating, that was all from the same day?
Yep, same day, right, same day.
Do you know if there is when in your time in Ghana or, you know, on the West Coast of Africa, do you know if there was a similar kind of commemoration done? Or had
there are commemorations like this done in Brazil. There are commemorations like this done in Texas, where you give homage, or, you know, to you know, and we also have another one done in New York. What is it? A tribute to the ancestors. That Tony does at Coney Island. As far as the content was concerned, I have not heard of anything that takes place in like this. I'm not saying there isn't. I just never.
Right. I had wondered if you had an opportunity to capture something like this, but on the African West Coast.
No,
the
but
West Coast of Africa.
They look at stuff a little differently. We pay homage to our African ancestry here. We pay homage to it in Brazil, but they don't pay homage to it in the same, because it's part of their day-to-day culture. Now they have other festivals where you have the Oshun festival that takes place in Osogbo in Nigeria, and that pays homage to Mother Oshun, who is considered a fertility goddess. And that takes place every year. It's a lot more commercialized now, but back when I shot it, it was, if you go on my website, I think it's under Fabulous Children, if it's there. I don't but that's where she's carrying the aruba on her head, and you have to be a virgin to do that. But, you know, we pay a different homage because, you know, you know, we're searching for our understanding of Africa. So
yes,
it's so, you know, it's that kind of energy, whereas they don't, you know, they're maybe commemorating gods or like I said, Oshun or you know, or primarily gods, you know. That's what they primarily do, because that's part of the mythology of their culture. Because they look at at their culture through years, decades, centuries of myths and stories that were handed down. And so we don't have that. You know, we were just trying to piece together our existence, our African heritage, coming out of enslavement, which was really, you know, as they say, it was interrupted. Our development was interrupted through that. Whereas theirs go back, like the Yorubas go back,
Sure.
1400s. I mean, they have all kinds of, you know, of you know, their kings and their customs, etc. So, you know, but for us, you know, it's something that we do, and only the woke people are part of this. You know, you won't find, you know, and when they come out, they're respectful. There's nobody with their pants on there hanging down or anything like that. They come out respectful. And if they are, they get you know, they get straightened out real quick. But they don't come like that.
I don't want to keep us from the remainder of the tour, but it's really interesting the point that you make, that here in the New World, we are continuing to search for our ancestors and search for evidence of our heritage and culture, and it's not necessarily as plain, right? But it does exist, but we have to look for it, right?
Correct.
Thank
But
you.
fortunately now we can get on a plane. We have historians. We have photographers like myself. We have filmmakers, you know, white and black, you know, to give us a better representation of who we are as a people, what we've had, what we lost, and what we need to know.
Thank you.
Oh, this piece. Oh, this is Harlem. How can I say? Dance was something that I really enjoyed doing. Dance movements, you'll see it in the piece. What is it? Anyway, it's a piece coming up. But dance was something that I really enjoyed. And this was a group at Harlem called the Uptown Dance Academy. And so I was given the opportunity to photograph them for an exhibition, which we did, I think it might have been in June or something like that. But here's a group of young women who are learning the discipline of dance, because dance is not easy. You know, it requires a lot of discipline, you know, to get it right. I mean, so, you know, you have these young girls who are maturing different ages, and they're learning, you know, the discipline and the power of dance, grace, how to walk. I mean, there's so many things that go with it. So that's it, Queen Bees. Yeah, that's dance was something. This is in the private collection of Danny Simmons. Queen Bees is a piece that was done at was it Town Hall in Manhattan, and that's the dance group of Mozambique. And at one time I was really into dance, because dance for me was just so fluid and so beautiful, but it also took me into the African diaspora, where I could be around the drumming and the dance movements and the whole energy of Africanness in America. So yeah, that's called Queen Bees. Now here we deal with the image that came out of my Katrina project. Katrina was a project that I did with the insistence of a friend of mine, Russell, who said that I need to go down and photograph. So I did it in 3 levels. I did the family, I did the devastation area, and I did the Mardi Gras. All this is around like 2005, 2006. But this was a family that had to leave New Orleans and was reunited in Noonan, Georgia. And how I came about it was one of my collectors in New York told me, well, you know, you have to go photograph my family. And so he told me about him, and he called down there and, you know, let them know I was coming. So I stopped in Greenville, grabbed my son, and we drove down there, and, you know, we were welcomed, and there were images I saw, but then this one was the one that I said, it just fell into place. And it's, you know, family unity, you know, strength, you know, it symbolized a lot of pieces. This is also in the private collection of one of my friends who used to work for the NAACP, Theodore Shore. He was the, he took over Thurgood Marshall's place. And so that's in his private collection. We're back in Harlem. This is Dance With Me. And Harlem was a way, here we go, we deal with dance again, but this is street. You know, this is, you know, this is like, you know, how we celebrate as, again, you know, our Africanness in our cities. You know, I remember the first time I'd seen this was in MacArthur Park when I was in LACC. I think it was on Saturdays, or I think it was Sundays. They would convene in a certain area up MacArthur Park, and you would see drumming and dancing, and it was very freestyle, and anybody could join in and participate. So I remember I made another trip to LA, and this was over in the the Crenshaw district. I'm trying to think of that area.
Probably Leimert Park.
Leimert Park, thank you. Where that takes place. And I think it was a Sunday also, Saturday or Sunday. And so it's us, you know, being able to, you know, feel out our Africanness, you know, through the rhythms and through dance movements that are probably in Oakland, it's probably in Chicago, I mean, it's probably in many, many cities. Many cities have dance groups, but this is like a kind of like, you know, you just get together with some folks. We also have another group of people that do this at Prospect Park in New York, in Brooklyn. So, you know, so this is Dance With Me. This is, I think it's called Saxing. I had a few names for it, but this was a part of my jazz series. I began to explore jazz a little bit more around, I think it was 2011. I got turned on to it again in LA. A friend of mine who played John Coltrane's My Favorite Things. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe the power and the beauty of that. But when I got to Nigeria, I got into Afrobeat. But coming back, because I got tired of hip hop, you know, no shade on hip hop, but I just never, and the days of the rhythm and blues, days of Smokey and all those, they were giving way to a lot of the new music that was coming out. So I just gravitated to jazz. And in jazz, I heard conversations between the drummer and the piano player and the horns, and they were having these, you know, not private conversations, but conversations that we could enjoy being there. But it didn't matter if we were there or not. They were still going to have these conversations, and the conversations were melodic. So we got a chance to sit in on some beautiful melodic energy. And then I'm photographing in slow motion, because it seemed that, there's movement not only in the music. And so I didn't want to stagnate it. So I wanted to give it a certain flow too.
I have a question for you. When you had indicated that you photograph again in slow motion because you're trying to depict the movement that you see and the fluidity of the movement, I'm wondering what experiences or impact, having attended LACC and the photo program here, what impact did that have on the development of your style?
It didn't really have any real, well, I would probably say style occurs like about 7 years. You look at a body of work and you say, okay, this is what I've done. But style is, in LACC, it was just basically learning how to speak photographically and learning the technical aspects of photography. Because if something was too dark, you want to know why. If something was out of focus, you want to know why. If something was underdeveloped, you wanted to know why. And then you once you got those regiments down, I would probably say my passion for photography really began after Ghana, because I was so welcome there, and it was just such a free flowing energy that from Ghana, I then went to Nigeria, and there again, I freelanced there for newspapers, magazines. I was Black, I blended in. No door was closed to me because of the color of my skin. And I felt more comfortable in that kind of energy. And I really, when I came back, I really didn't want to do commercial work. I mean, I wanted to depict the African diaspora in America. So, jazz is one. Church, as you see, is coming up, the Black Church, which is part of my Sunday series. It wasn't, LACC basically taught me how to get feelings out of images, which was due to my colleagues there, like Douglas and Sandy and Kenny, and we had like collaborations where we would talk about imagery, and we also had examples like W. Gene Smith, Gordon Parks. We could look at and look at their work and say, okay, Dwayne Michaels might have had an effect on me in terms of slow motion, because he had this mystical imagery that he would use. So I probably, but then, after a while you get tired. I knew I could stop an image. But the idea is, okay, what if I just let the image be an image? And so that was where that came about. I might've tried one experiment in LACC, but it wasn't until I got out of that I, came back to America. I said, let me just see how the images look as they become images, as opposed to wanting to stop them. Because I wasn't shooting for a newspaper or magazine when I was here. I was shooting for myself. So I had to find the love that I wanted in photography by doing things that some of my colleagues weren't doing. Because the idea is also try to separate what you're doing from what your colleagues are doing, because you don't always want to look the same. I don't know if I answered that.
Oh, thank you.
This was a journey. My girlfriend at the time, Oni, who was a batik artist, that's her father. And according to Oni, her mother hits her breast 3 times. And that's for Oni to come and visit them. So here we deal with, it wasn't a phone call. So here we deal with traditional mythology and custom. So myself, Cornelius, and Oni took a trip, and we got let off on the main road in Kwara State. And we walked for 6 hours to reach his village, which I think was Irunda and Isanlu by the mountain. And this man is called Abiodun. He's the king of the hunters. Now he lives in a village where there's no electricity, no running water. And what he does is he barters for whatever services or things he needs because he knows how to capture animals for food. So he goes and he captures, he knows where they all hang out. He knows how to trap them. He knows how to, he's been doing this for years. If you look at his fingers, I don't know if you can zoom in. I never removed that. But if you look at his fingers, you can see that bites which might have taken place, as he was, handling animals or got nicked or something, pieces of skin are missing. So I took a couple of photographs with him and his daughter. And as I was putting the camera away, he said, no, he wanted one by himself. And so this is where I realized that this is a different level. And so he sat down, posed, he put on his, rested his agbada, made it, let's call it an agbada. And that was it. It was like, I think it was like 2-3 shots. One of them was out of focus, but that was the one. And here again, you see the pride and the dignity and beauty of this man.
Was that in Nigeria or Ghana?
Nigeria.
Nigeria. What was that experience like, walking 6 hours and then coming to a village with no running water and electricity?
Well, I've been there for like 4 years already, so it wasn't no big deal for me. I mean, we got welcomed with warm beer, good food. I mean, the following day I walked through the village. We were greeted, well by folks that were there. It was great. But what I've left out was that we had passed a tree on our way there. And this tree was supposed to be the tree where spirits come and they hang out at night. And so to get them from messing, so they didn't like people in their area. So to keep them from messing with us, we had to smoke ganja because they didn't like that. So that's what we had to do when we were passing the tree. And it was this beautiful tree with branches and leaves and angles. And, it was different from all the other trees in the area. And that's where I was told that the spirits came and they hung out. So, yeah. This is called now here we go. This is the Oshogbo king of Oshogbo. And what it is that here, he is part of the Oshun ceremony that takes place in his village. So he's the gentleman that, he's hierarchy. He comes out, gives his okay, but there's the whole town comes out and celebrates the Oshun festival. And the Virgin walks from where he's at to the Oshun River, and then many of the women jump in, they bathe in there, some of them drink the water because they want to get pregnant. Because the idea is the Oshun River is the goddess of fertility. Oh, by the way, too, I forgot, I lived in that village for 2 years. So, it was like, there's also an area there called the Oshun Shrines, but that's another story. Right. This image was, I got when I was in a city called Yola. And I was hired by some gentlemen to come photograph their house that they were putting together, they were building. So I did that assignment. And that's where I sat there and I had a conversation with them about enslavement, about slavery. And I said, you know, what was it all about? And they said, well, as far as we were concerned, it was just business. You know, they didn't look at it as anything immoral or whatever. They looked at it as we were getting something for our slaves. We were exchanging them for maybe something of material value, material gain, or whatever. There was no, Nigeria really didn't have any idea of slavery and of the atrocities of enslavement until they saw Roots, which was in around, what was it? Was it 1977? I think it was, when that came out. But they had no idea about what had happened to us and what we had dealt with on our way through the Middle Passage into America. This gentleman was one of the people that hung out with the emir of Yola. And so he was in his entourage. So he had slipped off to go do something. And I looked at him, I said, he's beautiful. I mean, look at his robes, his color. And so, and if you look to the left, there's a bicycle in the corner in the shadow, which is what he was riding. So I just shot him. Nobody ever gave me any problems about shooting in Nigeria. You know, it was just, cool.
Now she's beautiful.
She is one of Fela's wives.
Yes, Fela Kuti.
Oh, somehow you know something. All right.
Oh, my dad played that music all the time.
We were invited to come to the shrine that night by Fela. We had interviewed him earlier. If you go on my site, you'll see a Fela gallery. She's in that gallery, but you'll see other images, some of Fela in his home, and some I took of Fela when he came to America in '89, the blue ones. But she was also a nice woman too. I mean, she was beautiful. Her father was real big. He was a big shot. And he was very unhappy that she was part of Fela's entourage. But she was gorgeous. I mean, just gorgeous. And what Fela had done, go back to that for a moment. What Fela had done was he had captured the stage performance energy of James Brown, where you had women that were there dancing and what's it, calling response to his lyrics, but they were beautiful, and it represented like a go-go kind of thing. And so not only was the band tight and Fela tight, but the dancers were tight. The whole presentation was just awesome. And he had lighting in the shrine. This is in the shrine. In the case, he had lighting, what we call studio lighting, theater lighting of reds and blue. I mean, it was just awesome. It was a great presentation up until dawn. We came on around 11 or 12, and he played until the sun came up. Straight.
Wow.
Oh, and by the way, one more second. Now, there's another one of his dances. This is when she came to New York. This is when he came to New York. Fela is now a nominee or frontrunner in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of 2001 inductees. So finally, the world is getting around to recognizing his contributions to music. And this is another one of his wives, his dancers. Just like I said, this was in New York. And here we go, the slow motion thing, because it just gives it another feel, another energy. You want to use photography if you can to make people feel things. Here we go. This was an image that a friend of mine had asked me to photograph. Supposedly they were going to tear down the buildings in that area, and he wanted me to capture where he grew up. His name was Bongos, and he owned a restaurant and a hotel. So he hired me to come and photograph the compound. And this was, I guess, one of his younger sisters, and that was his grandmother, or maybe his mother. So here again, I think I took about 3 shots. One was out of focus. But this one, this said it all. This was, and now if you look, if you zoom in a little bit, can you zoom in? There's a person, a young, if you look at the bottom, there's another child in there between the two. You can see the foot. And so, you know, children sometimes had a way of just being in an environment where you had elders and just being there. So this is called A Moment's Pause. I lived in a compound in Lagos. I didn't live in any fancy hotel or anything like that. And I was surrounded by kids. Children were all over. I mean, and it was pretty crowded there, you know, a bunch of kids. So once in a while, they would take a time or moment when nobody was, you know, yelling and screaming or whatever, and they would just go into themselves. So, you know, I was sitting there, I had my camera out, and so I photographed it. And now nobody really bothered me because I was just Howard, you know. After a while, I was, oh, that's Howard, you know, no big deal. It called me Howardou because, you know, it was more into the Yoruba language. And so, you know, that was primarily it.
So Mr. Cash, we have a few more minutes here. I do have a question in the chat from Hubert Mason. And I know Kevin's gonna continue to show some photos. The question is though, Mr. Cash, were there any photographs of color that influenced you in your work? And what unique perspectives does photography bring to Black history?
No, it was just Black people that influenced me. Whatever we were doing that people felt were important. I'm an observer. You know, if I see things that have meaning to people that I feel is constructive, progressive, or fun, then I'm about that. I'm not, you know. They reveal to me what they want me. Everybody you see in a photograph reveals to you what they want you to see when you get to a certain level. So no, I just Black people.
I'm sorry.
It could be in Brazil. It could be in, you know, LA. It could be in just what Black people are doing.
I'm sorry. The question was, what photographers of color have influenced you in your work?
Interesting.
Photographers of color.
I got influenced more by the writers from the Harlem Renaissance. They took me on journeys of our neighborhoods, of our lives, of the things that they thought were important. LACC, during that time period, the only thing you had out there was the Black Photographers Annual, which I saw, which now I know of many of the photographers. I would say Gordon Parks, but I'd probably say more than anybody it was W. Eugene Smith, because he was able to tell a story, photo story, and with excellence in terms of his imagery. So I'd probably say, you know, it wasn't, you know, it was, see, you don't have to, you just have to learn the techniques. And then once you learn the techniques, you have to figure out where you want to apply them. Do you want to apply them to white America or Black America? But the techniques are still the same. You want to be able to tell a story with the imagery.
Thank you. And so here is the website to Mr. Cash's photography to get more information, to look at more of his work. There is a huge library of photographs and different exhibits that he has. So please take this information down and share that. If there aren't any questions, please, you can put them into the chat now if you have any questions or want to ask anything of Mr. Cash at this time. do want to thank the foundation, Mr. Kevin Brown, for allowing us to have Mr. Cash, inviting him to this, to our campus to come back and to share his experiences. And if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sadia Porcher, who is the Dean of Umoja and EOPS CalWorks Care.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really want to extend my thanks to Kevin Brown and the foundation who helped us identify and locate Mr. Cash, our distinguished alumni and artist here. And so on behalf of Student Services, just to reintroduce myself really quickly, Sadia Lagarde Porcher, one of the Deans of Student Services at City, working with Andrea and our new counselor, Brandy Robinson in Umoja, along with other special program, along with other special programs. So again, I just want to extend my thanks to Kevin, to Mr. Cash, and Andrea for helping to pull all of this together and helping to have this spotlighted, Mr. Cash's work spotlighted here back at his alma mater. And I, for one, was really very impressed, especially with that technique you use with the slow motion to, you know, elicit a feeling, like you said, from your work. And so that we can see the fluidity, especially in those pieces where dance or music was being reflected. And so I was inspired. I thank you so much for going through your collection with us. And Kevin, did you want to say a few words?
I just had a question for Howard. If you were a student today, a young budding photographer, what advice would you give them, just in terms of being a professional and you know, it's not an easy road in any artist, but would you have any advice for any students aspiring photographers?
It's a long road. It's a little easier now because you have digital. And you can see the image almost immediately from digital imagery to Photoshop. But I would still say study the classics, Eugene Smith, Gordon Parks, Diane Arbus, The Photographers of Life, Look, and at some point in time, determine what you want to say to the world. Most people have to start out doing commercial work until they get to a point where they can do what they want to do. So it's a journey. I've seen many people aspire and give up, you know, because they hit a wall. But if you study the greats that are pertinent to what you want to do, then maybe you can get beyond that wall. My opening was Ghana. Once I got into Ghana and that flavor, I wanted more. LACC had its strengths and its weaknesses. It had a very good photography department where I could learn the technical aspects. And upstairs at the Collegian, the aesthetic aspects. But to make a living, that was the real education.
Yeah, yeah. And that, I think, is for any of the arts. That's why people do it, because they love it, because it's very hard to make a living at it. So, you know, that's a different goal, but it's always great to hear from someone who is a photographer, who has years of experience, and would share that with students. We really appreciate it, Howard. And I just, as an alumni relations director, I just can't thank you enough for sharing your time and your talents with our students. It is so important that they see somebody who started out in the same place as they did, and that they took a path, and it's not always a straight line, but that they ended up, that they hope to end up, if they are aspiring photographers, to have a career as distinguished as yours.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And thanks once again on behalf of Student Services and also on behalf of the college, Dr. Gallagher, and our Vice President, Alan Andriasian, our Acting Vice President. And again, thanks to the foundation for your assistance in helping us find Mr. Cash and having our esteemed alumnus back on campus. Thanks to all. Thanks,
Pleasure.
Andrea.
Pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Pleasure.